And so I heard these poems by Burns over and over again at all occasions, and it was wonderful. And my father found that even though he'd not been speaking with any kind of Scottish brogue for 40 years, it came right back to him. It was there and it was part of him. So it's been part of our family culture ever since. And we celebrate Burns nights together, and we recite Burns. And then I've taken it on to not just recite Burns, but to commit Burns to memory, because I find that it's easier in some ways to completely understand a poem when it's part of your body, really part of your physical brain. And so I've had a lot of wonderful insights into not just Burns, but my father and my grandmother as well.
Welcome to On Caring, the Project, hosted and directed by Jeffrey Longhofer and Jerry Flourish, from our studios in Lawrence, Kansas, Watershed Studios. On Caring, the Project invites a conversation on what we care about, who we care about, how we care, and what we know about caring. We think of caring as a kind of watershed which channels our needs and desires along streams of 9 interdependent modes of caring. Please take a look at our website, oncaring.org, to learn more about our caring podcasts, vodcasts, and our blog. We talk to scholars, practitioners, ethicists, artists, and filmmakers, poets and writers, farmers, workers, and politicians about caring practices and how to imagine a truly caring society. We ask questions about the social order. Where have we come from? What is it like now? Where are we going? What is to be done? Today we're visiting with Thomas Fox Averill. Thomas is the winner of the O. Henry Award and now Professor Emeritus of English at Washburn University of Topeka, where he, for 37 years, taught creative writing and Kansas literature, folklore, and film. We invite you to look at our website, oncaring.org, to learn more about Thomas Fox Averill and his work. Today we have Thomas with us in the studio, and he's going to share with us poems by Robert Burns and a deeper connection to the legacy of Robert Burns. Thomas, welcome to On Caring.
To a louse on seeing one on a lady's bonnet in church, 1786. Ha! Where you gone, you crawling fairly? Your impudence protects you surely. I cannot say but you strump rarely, o'er gauze and lace, though faith I fear you dine but sparely on sic a place. You ugly, blasted, creeping oner, detested shown by saint and sinner. How dare you set your foot upon her, so fine a lady? Go somewhere else and seek your dinner, on some poor body. Swith, in some beggar's half-it squall there, you may creep and sprawl and sprattle with ither kindred jumping cattle in shoals and nations, where horn nor ban ne'er dare unsettle your thick plantations. Now hold you there, you're out of sight, beneath the fatteral snoggin tight. Oh, faith me, yet you'll no be right till you've got on it the very topmost tower in height of Mrs. Bonnet. My sooth, that I ball you set your nose out, as plump and grey as any grouset. Oh, for some rank mercurial roset, or fell red sedum, I'd gie you set a dose of it, dress your drorum. I wouldn't have been surprised to spy ya on some old wife's flannin toy, or abling some bit doobie boy in his wiley coat, but Mrs. Fine Lunardi? Fie, How dare you do it? Now, Jenny, do not toss your head and set your beauties all abread. You little ken what cursed sped the blast he's making. The winks and fingerings I dread are notice taken. Would the poor some gifty gie us to see ourselves as others see us? 'Twould from money a blunder free us and foolish notion. Whate'er's address and gait would lead us, and even devotion. I always call this a poem of close observation. Robert Burns, sitting in church on a Sunday and unsuspecting to the woman with the bonnet, there's a louse. Burns has an interesting perspective on the louse. I remember one time he wrote in a letter about somebody that he didn't like, that who was bragging about having visited the king. And Burns wrote, well, a louse is a louse, whether on a poor person or on a king, as implying that the guy was still a louse. Anyway, you get this juxtaposition of the lowliest kind of creature, a louse, and this fine lady, whom he addresses as lady, on her Lunardi bonnet. What's interesting in the poem, though, is that even though he's addressing the louse, all through the poem, at a certain point, he changes that, and this fine lady becomes the person that they all know, and that they're all sort of pointing at and winking about because she has a louse on her bonnet. Her name is Jenny, and he says, "Oh, Jenny, do not toss your head." And then, of course, after that, he does the final close observation. He goes to the more general notion that we don't always know how we appear to other people, and if we did, in all of our humanity, we would probably all have the gift of insight that none of us is really better than anybody else, and that we're all, louse included, we're all creatures. Two poems about relationships by Robert Burns. The first, John Anderson, my Joe, from 1789. John Anderson, my Joe, John, when we were first acquaint, your locks were like the raven, your bonny brow was brent. Now your brow is billed, John, your locks are like the snow. The blessings on your frosty pow, John Anderson, my Joe. John Anderson, my Joe, John, we climbed the hill together, and many a canty day, John, we've had with ane another. Now we maun toddle down, John, and hand in hand we'll go, and sleep together at the foot, John Anderson, my Joe. And oh, wert thou in the cold blast from 1796, oh, wert thou in the cold blast on yonder lea, my plaidy, to the angry out, I'd shelter thee. Or did misfortune's bitter storms around thee blow? Thy beard shall be my bosom, to share it all. Or were I in the wildest waste, so black and bare, the desert were a paradise if thou wert there. Or were I monarch of the globe, with thee to reign, the brightest jewel in my crown would be my queen. These two poems of mature relationships were both written by Burns when he was with Jean Amour, his lifetime love, whom he finally married and had most of his children with. John Anderson, my Joe, had originally been a song about a young woman complaining about an older husband, and he took it and made it a beautiful poem about mature love. My Joe Joe is a term for dear or love or partner. Now in the Cold Blast was written the very last year of Burns's life when he was ill. He wrote it for a young woman who was taking care of him and his wife and children. He asked her favorite song, and then he did In the Cold Blast. And it really sort of prefigures his own death. The first stanza about shelter, the second about sharing, the third one about comfort, and the fourth about reverence and respect and remembrance. To a mouse on turning her up in her nest with the plow, 1785. Wee sleekit cowering timorous beastie, oh what a panic's in thy breastie, and you not start away so hasty with bicker and brattle. I would be loath to run and chase thee with murder and battle. I'm truly sorry, man's dominion has broken nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion that makes thee startle at me, thy poor earth-born companion and fellow mortal. I doubt not whilst but thou may thieve. What then, poor mousie? Thou maun leave. A Damon Ilker in the threads a small request. I get a blessing on the left, never missed. Thy wee bit horsey too, in the ruin. His silly walls the winds are strewing, and nothing now to big a new one of foliage green, and bleak December winds ensuing, but snell and keen. Thou saw the field laid bare and west, and weary winter coming fast, and cozy here beneath the blast thou meant to dwell, till crash the cruel coulter passed out through thy cell. That wee bit heap of leaves and stibble, it cost thee mony a weary nibble. Now thou's turned out for all thy trouble, but house nor hall, to thaw the winter sleety drizzle and crannock cold. But mousie, thou art no thy lane, in proven foresight may be vain. The best laid schemes o' mice and men gang after gley, and leave us naught but grief and pain for promised joy. Still, thou art blessed compared with me. The present only toucheth thee, while a backward cast my eye on prospects drear, and forward, though I cannot see, I guess and fear. This is a poem really about a man and nature, human relationship, the nature's social union, as Burns calls it. He addresses the mouse. He's so big, the mouse is so small. The forces around the mouse are so big. The winter coming, and now no house. And Burns, this experience actually happened to Burns, and the young man that he was with almost did chase the mouse with the paddle to try to kill it. And then Burns wrote this poem, and he addresses the mouse, of course, but as usual with Burns, at a certain point, he starts ruminating and philosophizing about not just the mouse's condition, but the human condition, that we're all like the mouse. We make plans, and our hopes are dashed, leave us naught but grief and pain for promised joy. But the very last stanza, thou art blessed compared with me, the present only toucheth thee. He really gets into the human condition, which is different from the mouse's condition, because the human condition, we live in three different worlds. We live in the past, we live in the present, and we live in the future. It was said that Abraham Lincoln delivered to a mouse at a banquet for senators and governors after the Civil War. And that last stanza would perfectly describe what Lincoln had been through, what the nation had been through. Backward, but backward I cast my eye on prospects drear, and forward though I see, and forward I cannot see but guess and fear. And of course, 2 weeks later, Lincoln, who couldn't guess but could fear, was assassinated. A man's a man for all that. 1795. Is there for honest poverty that hangs his head and all that? The card slave, we pass him by, we dare be poor for all that. For all that and all that, our toils obscure and all that. The rank is but the guinea's stamp, the man's the gout for all that. What though on aimly fare we dine, wear hoarding grey and all that. Give fools their silks and knaves their wine, a man's a man for all that. For all that and all that, their tinsel show and all that. The honest man, the heir so poor, is king of men for all that. You see yon Berkey called a lord, with throats and stairs and all that? Though hundreds worship at his word, he's but a coof for all that. For all that and all that, his ribbon, star and all that. The man of independent mind, he looks and laughs at all that. A prince can make a belted knight, a marquis, duke, and all that. But an honest man's aboon his might, good faith he mauna for that. For all that and all that, their dignities and all that, the pith of sense and pride of worth, a higher rank than all that. So let us pray that come it may, and come it will, for all that sense and worth, o'er all the earth, shall bear the gree and all that. For all that and all that, it's coming yet for all that man to man, the world o'er, shall brothers be for all that. A man's a man for all that is really one of Burns's most beloved poem. For those who celebrate Burns and his attitude about his anti-monarchist attitude for one thing, but also, he was reading Thomas Paine during that time, The Rights of Man, and Burns lived in a time when democracies were popping up, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, all of these going on. So Burns was in touch with all of this. He himself had come from a humble working class farming background, and he really believed that honest work, the simple folk, what though on hamely fare we dine, that the trappings of wealth and of monarchy were debilitating to people, and sort of the class warfare that was going on during his time, he was very sympathetic with, although he had to be careful about what he said during that time too, because he worked as an excise man for the British government. So he wrote a man's a man for all that, and it was not even published during his lifetime, but it was spirited around in copies and became quickly one of his most popular poems, written the year before he died. Memory is a wonderful thing. When you memorize a poem, you literally incorporate it. You make it corporal. You make it real. It's part of your body. My friend, the poet Eric McHenry, once said that a memorized poem is the easiest art to smuggle and the hardest one to steal. And I think that's how I feel when I have these poems in my head, that they become then a part of me that I can take anywhere, and they're accessible to me in my thinking and in my conversation with people.
You've been listening to On Caring, the Project, a conversation with Thomas Averill about the work of Robert Burns and family and memory, and why we should care about poems. Please visit our website, where you'll find also a blog posting by Thomas Averill, Robbie Burns in 30 Poems, a gloss.